Hey, what's up guys? I am down at the indoor range, Prairie Bowman Archery in Lincoln, Nebraska, and it's my birthday today. It's my birthday today. Turned 26. I'm over that threshold, so I'm a little bit closer to 30 than I am to 20, and that's fine. I love it. Life is good, moving on, big things happening. I couldn't be any happier. So anyway, we're down here at the range. I'm down here at the range, but it's about to be weird down here at the range. So I got some buddies coming over. They're gonna be shooting with me, but first I wanna fletch up some arrows. So I'm gonna do a little video here real quick of just fletching up some Easton Hexx. So these are the arrows that I shoot. This is what I'm shooting out of my Hoyt RX3. If I can get it open, hold up. So these here are the Easton Hexx. These are the arrows that I am currently shooting. These arrows in particular are in a 330 spine. I cut them to 27 inches. So what that does for my bow, because I shoot such a short draw, I can get away with a 330 spine with 80 pounds because when you cut them that short, it stiffens the spine up pretty dang good. So they tune really well for my bow. They fly extremely well, especially at distance. They're just darts, man. And I put 50 grains of brass up front for the inserts. I'll show you guys all that stuff when I'm fletching them up here. But yeah, just want to make a quick little video, show you guys fletching some arrows. So this is my little fletching box. This is where I keep all the goods. So in here I've got some AAE Max Stealth vanes. That's what I'll fletch them up with. Got the Max cleaning arrow wipes, as well as the Bits and Burger jig. That is the jig right there that I used to fletch everything with. And I use a 3-degree right helical. You can use a left helical, a straight fletch. There's all sorts of different stuff that you can do with arrows to customize the way that they fly. That's the fun about fletching your own arrows, is like you can just build them the way you want them, you know? Typically they come with a micro light insert up front that is not brass. It's just like an aluminum insert that I mean is like 10 or 12 grains. I like to shoot a little bit heavier weight up front, so I shoot them with a 50 grain brass break off insert. I'll show you guys kind of what those look like too. So gonna get all this stuff set up, and also I bought some new stuff. So I bought a new tube of glue because I was running low, and then I bought the AAE Max Weld primer pen. That is a must, and I'll show you guys why. And then I bought some more AAE Max Clean arrow wipes. A big thing with fletching with the AAE vanes, I don't know why, it's just the compound that they're made out of, but they're extremely particular to having everything like meticulously cleaned. And the only glue I've ever been able to get to work with these Max Stealth vanes is AAE's Max Bond glue. All right, so what you want to start off by doing is grab your arrow shafts, get all the bare shafts here, and start off by grabbing a Max Clean arrow wipe. Again, the AAE Max Clean arrow wipe, and just wipe down all of the shafts, the back end of the shafts, where you're going to be either putting your fletching. You can put your fletch directly on the shaft, or if you're like me, I run an arrow wrap on the back. I like to run white. And the only reason I run white is because when the arrow passes through an animal, I'm able to see exactly what the blood looks like. So obviously sometimes the blood's gonna look a little bit different if it's a gut shot, if it's a liver shot, heart shot, lung shot. So having a white arrow wrap makes a lot of difference. I just use the Boning arrow wraps. They're a 4-inch wrap. So yeah, wipe down all of the back end of your arrow shafts until they're all nice and clean, and then set those aside and make sure that they're sterile. Like, don't touch them again with your fingers, because your fingers have oils on them. So do not touch those arrow shafts again with your fingers. Just make sure that they're sterile all the way up until you wrap them. Again, what this is doing is just taking any oil or contamination, anything that was on these arrow shafts from the factory manufacturing. Not that they're super dirty when you get them in the package by any means, but it doesn't take much to make something not adhere on the back end of a carbon arrow shaft. So just want to make sure, and this is like not even just AAE veins, this is with any vein. I highly recommend wiping down the back side of your arrow shaft. Wherever you're going to adhere anything, whether it's a wrap or a vein, just wipe that shaft down. You can use these Max Clean arrow wraps, or I know a lot of people use like acetone on a rag. You can do that too. Just make sure it's good and clean on the back end. So set that aside. Grab your first arrow that has been, it's like thoroughly dry. That stuff flashes off pretty quick, so this one's good and dry. So what I like to do, take the knock out of the back of the arrow shaft. You can just pull on that, it'll come out. And then what I have here, I have just a regular mouse pad for just a computer. So what that mouse pad is gonna do is provide me a surface to lay out my wrap. Now, you've laid your wrap down, obviously sticky side up. You've figured out which way the little logo is. On this one, the boning logo is on the high end, so I want that on the high end of the arrow. So lay your arrow shaft down. Again, try not to touch the arrow shaft too much with your fingers. Just slide that arrow shaft up until you start pushing. See how I'm pushing that little sticker? Now just give it a slight roll with pressure. Get that thing started. And on the back side, I like to just push that down, make sure it's flat. Now, push that and keep pressure down on that mouse pad as you roll. Roll that arrow up nice and tight, just like that. Now that thing is completely wrapped, and see how I left just a little bit of carbon on the end? I actually like to do that. Leave yourself a little bit of carbon on the end so that when you seat your knock back down, you're not actually seating it down on the arrow wrap or the sticker portion. You're seating it down on solid carbon. So wipe this thing down. That took all of my oil from my fingers or anything off of that wrap. Now set this aside to dry, move on to the next one. All right, so I've got all 6 arrows. They're all wrapped and they're all decontaminated with the wipes. And now I'm gonna start fletching them. What I like to do is just grab yourself enough fletching to do 1 arrow at a time. So lay your fletching out. I'm gonna do orange, orange, and then black for the cock feather. So I like to do just enough fletching to do 1 arrow at a time. And this is your that AAE Max Weld primer pen. Again, guys, make sure that you are using this primer pen if you're using any AAE veins. I don't care if they're the Pro Max or the Max Hunters, the Max Stealth, anything. Make sure that you're using this primer pen. I like to take like an old used wipe, push it down a few times until that primer starts to come out of the tip, which it is right now. Then take that vein and just wipe back into that vein down. Again, that just takes any oils and contaminants off from the factory and preps that vein to adhere to the shaft. Again, just do however many veins you're gonna do with 1 arrow at a time, because that stuff flashes off really, really fast. I have this set up for a 3-degree right helical in a 3 fletch. So I'm at 0, set this thing in, and then I actually shoot with my veins about, I think I'm 1 1/8 or 1 1/4 back from the throat of the knock is where the back end of my vein starts. So I've actually marked that on my jig. So I already know that I put the back of the vein right there where I put that little Sharpie mark, and I'm gonna be consistent with all of my arrows. So I always start with the cock feather, load that in, shimmy it up to the back end. You've got your vein in there, and what I like to do is go along and put just a few dabs. Get that glue flowing. Put a few dabs all the way along this vein, just like that. Then I take the tip of that bottle, just run it up and down. Now you've got glue on the entire surface of that vein. So line this up in the clamp, shove it down on the back. Always start with the back portion of it first, all the way up to the front. Push that down, and you can see, I don't know if you can see on video, but the front of that vein is right at the front of my arrow wrap. That's just how I like to fletch them. I know that they're consistent every single time. Let that sit for, like this Max Bond stuff, you can let that sit for about, I do about 20-30 seconds, and then you can pull that clamp off and roll it to the next setting. Doesn't take a lot of glue. If you go too heavy with the glue, it starts pouring over and just getting really sloppy, and your arrows don't look very good. Okay, so you've got your arrow fletched. You're happy with it, looks good. Yay! So satisfied. Now, we're gonna glue in the inserts, and what I shoot are these Easton. There's 75 to 50 grain break-off inserts, and they're brass. I actually shoot it with a 50 grain option, so I do break off that little tail end of the brass. All right, so I take each one of these brass inserts, and I just use a pair of needle nose pliers, grab the back end of that insert at that break-off point, just break them right off. Now you got 50 grains of brass up front. If you want to be really, really particular, you can get yourself like a grain scale and weigh each one of these and shave off just a little bit more and a little bit more if you want to get really, really accurate. But just breaking those off gets you pretty dang close. So now that I've done that, I take this insert with the arrow shaft that's been plumbed up. All right, so side note, and something I neglected to show on video, but previously I had squared up all of my arrow shafts with a jig similar to this. What that does is just make sure that the insert sits nice and flush on the end of the arrow shaft. And I actually use, not a lot of people do this, I don't think. I think a lot of people use epoxy, but I have literally not had one insert come out in probably 4 dozen, 5 dozen arrows. I actually just use this Max Bond, the AAE Max Bond glue, and I just put a light film on the entire insert. Again, just a light film on that whole insert. And then get it started in that arrow shaft, twist it on, find yourself a flat surface, slam it on. Right there, you've got the inserts completely seated all the way up against that carbon. And then take yourself a little wipe, get rid of any of that excess glue, just roll that off so it doesn't get down in the threads or anything like that. There you go. You've got an arrow completely built, fletched up, you've got your insert in, all you gotta do is screw a point in, you're ready to shoot. But yeah, so that's completely fletched up. That's my arrow setup. This is an Easton Hexx 330, cut at 27 inches. I shoot a 3 fletch Max Stealth vein from AAE with a 4-inch boning wrap. Yeah, these arrows are like 0.001 thousandths as far as straightness goes. They're 7.9 grains per inch. And like I say, because I'm such a short draw, I can kind of get away with that 330. and shoot it out of my 80-pound Hoyt RX3. So finished out, once I put either like a nocturnal or a lighted nock on the end of this, finished out total arrow weight for this setup is about 420 grains. So that's my setup, guys. Appreciate you watching. If you like this video, if you liked watching just random stuff like fletching arrows, let me know, drop a comment below, hit that smash. Dylan just walked in and started making gestures towards me. If you like this video, smash that subscribe button, give this video a like, and like I say, drop a comment below, let me know what you want to see in the future. Appreciate you guys, thank you.